I'm Aaron Falmer, and this is my supply and demand project for economics. The idea of economics is strongly influenced by the terms supply and demand. Supply means that it means how much of a product has been made and can be sold, whereas demand means how many people want to buy that product. And these two are strongly influenced by each other. As the price of a product goes down, the demand will go up, and as the demand for a product goes up, more of it will be made to meet that demand. This is known as the law of supply and demand, and it is affected by the term called the real income effect. Real income effect means that as a household gains more income from like a bonus or a raise, that household will spend more money on outside goods such as video games or cars or vacations. Not all things positively impact the demand, however, and the law of diminishing marginal utility shows that the more of a product is consumed, the less satisfaction the consumer gets from it, meaning that they will most likely end up buying less of it in the future. This is strongly tied to the law of law of diminishing returns. Now, this means that if all of the factors in production remain the same except that one is increased, then that factor that is increased will eventually stop having an effect. An example of this is when a farmer uses fertilizer on his crops. Eventually, if he uses too much fertilizer, instead of helping the crops grow better, it will have a detrimental effect. Now, just as the economy is always changing, so too are the graphs used to describe it. Specifically, the supply and demand graphs that can be affected left or right by things called shifters. Now, some of the shifts in supply can be how much it costs to produce a good. If it's expensive, then not as much of that good will be produced. It could be advances in technology will make producing goods easier. Natural conditions can make producing goods either harder or easier depending on the conditions that they're being produced in, or government taxes and regulations can make producing goods significantly harder depending on how monitored and regulated they are. Now, demands also can have shifts, such as if more consumers are appearing and the demand will increase because more people will want to buy that product. Households increasing their revenue so that they have more money to spend. Personal taste and preferences. If a consumer prefers one good over another, then they will buy the good that they like instead of the one they dislike. Expectations of a product can have an effect. If a consumer has a bad expectation of a product, they most likely won't buy it. And related goods can have an effect. So, for example, if forks are becoming popular and more people are buying forks, then they'll most likely also buy more spoons with them since they're very closely related. Now, this also leads to surpluses of goods and shortages. If there are too much of a good, then you'll have a surplus of it, and if there's too little, then you'll have a shortage. And to help prevent this from happening, the government can impose price ceilings and price floors to put a cap on how much a company is allowed to charge for a good and make a minimum requirement on how much a consumer can spend on it. This is especially helpful when regulating inelastic goods, which we'll get into next. How much a product is affected by a change in price is known as its elasticity. Now, the more a product changes in price, the more elastic it is. But if a product doesn't change, such as something that you can't find a replacement for, then it's inelastic. And this can be very dangerous because if if a company manages to monopolize an inelastic good, then they can overcharge consumers for it, which is why it's important for the government to put price ceilings in place.